People's borrowings have peaked out and they are not consuming anymore. It's a quiet shift, but one that is showing up in numbers clearly. Car sales, FMCG volumes, housing demand, personal loans, almost every major indicator that reflects how Indian households behave with money has started to flatten or decline. And it is not a temporary pause, it looks like the early signs of something deeper. India has spent the last 2 decades building its growth story around rising consumption. From a 100 rupee shampoo packet to a 10 lakh SUV, the idea was simple. As incomes rise, spending follow. That is what economists expected, companies planned for, and investors priced in. But the data now suggests that something has changed. Consumption, which still makes up for around 60% of our GDP, is no longer growing the way that it used to. Not across the board and not for most people. Hi, I am Pranshumaan, and if you're new here, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who will find it useful. Also join our Telegram group where we have these discussions regularly. Start with autos. In FY24, SUVs outsold small cars for the first time. It was not close. 2.35 million SUVs versus just over 1 million hatchbacks. The entry-level buyer is vanishing. During the Diwali season, which is usually the strongest for car makers, sales of compact cars was flat to negative. Maruti's chairman R.C. Bhargava put it plainly, nearly 88% of Indian households now find 10 lakh rupees cars unaffordable. That is a new reality. People are either buying bigger or not buying at all. Cinema is another example. PVR Inox saw average occupancy fall to just 20% in FY25. That is 1 in 5 seats occupied across thousands of shows. Total footfall fell from 151 million to 137 million year on year. Streaming services are a factor, but the drop is too steep to be blamed on OTT alone. When a family evening out starts costing upward of 1000 rupees, it becomes easier to just stay in. In the FMCG space, urban growth has slowed to 2.6%. That is nominal volume growth, not inflation adjusted. Nestle India's stock is down nearly 8% this year. Its chairman has said that the middle income consumer, the one that most brands traditionally targeted, is thinning out. There is evidence of consumers trading down, buying private labels, or skipping non essentials altogether. Starbucks is still expanding in India, but more slowly than expected. The company plans to reach 1,000 stores by 2028, but that pace is modest when compared to China, which has over 6,500 stores. Growth expectations are being re-evaluated across categories. And all this is happening while GDP numbers still look good. That is a paradox. The economy is officially growing at over 6%, yet households are clearly holding back. Why? Well, the biggest reason seems to be income. Wage growth has stalled. According to an ILO report, average real wages actually fell by 1% in 2023. That includes both casual and regular salaried workers. In the IT sector, which employs a large chunk of the urban middle class, hiring has slowed sharply. Companies like TCS and Infosys are delaying campus offers, mid-level roles are being automated, and entry-level salaries have not moved much in 5 years. In rural India, the picture is similar. Agriculture still supports around 46% of the workforce. A good monsoon in 2024 helped somewhat, but over the past 2 years, rural incomes have barely grown. Climate change is making farm income more volatile, food inflation is persistent. Moody's even flagged water stress as a long-term sovereign risk for India. So while rural consumption has held up a bit better in some quarters, it is not strong enough to drive a broader recovery. With flat incomes, there is less room for discretionary spending. But even more than that, households seem to be getting cautious, and that shows up most clearly in the credit data. Personal loan growth, which was clocking over 19% year on year last year, has now slowed to 6%. Overall bank credit growth is at a 3-year low of 9.8%. Fintech-driven lending, once booming, is beginning to show stress. Credit card spend is still growing, but delinquencies are rising. More than 3.6% of unsecured loans are overdue by more than 90 days. RBI has responded by increasing the capital requirement for these segments. Banks are tightening, borrowers are slowing down, and the cycle has turned. Retail loan originations, which were growing in double digits, are now up just 5% year on year. That is not a collapse, but it's a significant deceleration. And with household debt to GDP now around 42%, there is simply less room to push more loans without risking financial stress. The phase of consumption powered by easy credit may be behind us. At the same time, bank deposits are not growing fast either, which would normally suggest lower savings, but that is not what is happening. Because even though consumption is slowing and borrowing is peaking, people are not withdrawing from the financial system. They are just redirecting their money. SIP inflows hit a record 26,688 crores in May 2025. Mutual fund AUM crossed 72 lakh crore rupees. equity funds have recorded 51 consecutive months of positive net inflows. SIP accounts now stand at over 8.5 crores, and younger investors are entering with 250 and 500 rupee SIPs. So, what we are seeing is not a retreat but a shift from spending to investing, from consumption to compounding. People are holding back on buying cars, delaying home purchases, skipping out of home food and discretionary items, but they're showing up in the stock market. They're putting money into mutual funds, they're tracking returns, they're learning how to manage risk. This is a different kind of middle class, one that is not aspirational in the traditional sense. It is more cautious, more selective, and more long term. It is buying fewer things and building more financial assets. That said, this shift is not universal. It is happening largely at the top. The upper 20% who still have job security, digital access, and disposable income are driving the SIP flows and investing in equities. The rest are largely out of the picture. They're not spending because they cannot, and they're not investing because they don't have the surplus. This is what a K shaped recovery looks like. One part of the population is doing fine, while the other is trading water. Which brings us to a larger question. If consumption is no longer broad based and credit led demand has slowed, what does that mean for India's growth model? Private consumption has traditionally driven more than half of India's GDP. If that part of the economy stays weak, the burden shifts elsewhere. Right now, that burden is being carried by government capital expenditure. Highways, rail networks, logistics parks, power plants are examples of what are keeping the wheels turning. The center's focus on infrastructure is holding up aggregate demand. But that model has limits. Fiscal space is not infinite, tax revenues are under pressure, and foreign direct investment in manufacturing has slowed. Exports, which could have provided relief, are facing global headwinds, so the public sector can only carry the weight for so long. Meanwhile, private investment is subdued. Companies are not expanding aggressively, banks are liquid but cautious, and investors are bullish on markets but not necessarily on the broader economy. Everyone is watching consumption numbers, and right now they don't look good. This creates a risk, not of a sudden collapse, but of a long period of mediocre, narrow growth, where a few sectors do well, asset markets stay elevated, but the real economy feels stuck. In development economics, there is the idea of a middle income trap. Countries will grow rapidly for a while, then stall before reaching high income status. But India might face something earlier, a kind of a pre middle income trap, where growth slows before incomes even rise meaningfully, where consumption stays shallow and productivity gains do not materialize. The warning signs are there. Incomes are flat, consumption is slowing, and credit has peaked. And households are adjusting their behavior in ways that suggest that they don't expect a turnaround anytime soon. If this continues, India risks setting into a low growth equilibrium well before it reaches a middle income level. None of this means that the future is bleak. It just means that the assumptions need to be updated. The idea that consumption will keep rising, that borrowers will keep taking loans, and that the middle class will keep expanding needs to be re examined. The base of the pyramid is under pressure, and the numbers are starting to show it.